So, yeah, thank you for our for joining back for our Tuesday discussion on Manas Siksha. So, it has been a very wonderful opportunity connecting with you every week. So, I am really sorry that the day before Janmashtami, we are having to discuss something that is not connected to Radharani. Of course, the subject matter is something very exalted also. So, even though some of you might expect that I might speak about uh, the festival that is tomorrow, but I will rather seek the blessings of Srimati Radharani so that I could speak on the subject matter on hand. We will stick to Manasiksha only. So, so thank you all very much for joining again, and we will continue our discussion. So, last time we started discussing about the importance of Manasiksha, which is based on a very well researched article that was written by Her Grace Urmila Mataji. So we will continue that discussion. So we discussed last time that how history plays a very crucial role to give. Sometimes history plays a very crucial role to give us very wonderful perspectives on many things. And I shared some examples from my own life last time, that how history presents a very important perspective. So from important role in presenting very relevant perspectives to understand certain things that have happened in either our lives or someone else's lives, or in this case we are going to try to understand certain events that happened in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. But we are going to discuss the history of a small part of that history of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara in order to understand the relevance and importance of the book that we are going to discuss, that we have started to discuss. So I will share the screen and we will start our discussion about the importance of Manasiksha. So okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes,
Before you
Mataji.
start,
Yeah.
Prabhuji, many people are not able to join the group, meeting.
Oh, I think
They are having some problem in the this thing.
Yeah, I think twice Rajvinath Sham Prabhu shared the link. So first I shared a particular link which was not correct, or rather he shared a link which was not correct. Then again I resent the right link. So I think they must have joined. They must have tried to join through the earlier link. That's why they would not be able to join. So you can ask them. This is going to be the permanent link.
Okay.
The second one, and it won't require them to enter a password. Every time they can just enter through this particular ID. That should be sufficient. So you can just inform them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will continue. As we saw, we will discuss the importance of Manasiksha by Urmila Mataji. So last time we discussed, I'll do a very quick recap of what we have seen last time. We saw that we tried to understand the purpose of descent of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially the purpose of Krishna's descent with his associates from Goloka Vrindavan, like Subal, Sridama, Lalita, Vishaka, Radharani, Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, and all of them, along with Govardhan, the 12 forests of Vrindavan, Mother Yamuna, and all of that was to show to people of this world the kind of love that the Vrajavasis have towards Krishna. That was the purpose of descent of Krishna, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to preach that. Ragamarga Bhakti Loke Karite Pracharan, Prema Rasa Niryasa Karite Aswadan. Chaitanya Charitamrita says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended to, or Krishna rather descended as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to experience the kind of love that the Vrajavasis have towards him, because he was overwhelmed seeing how could someone show such ecstatic symptoms towards in a relationship with anyone. So Krishna, through his other incarnations, had experienced the love of many of his devotees, but the love that the Vrajavasis showed towards Krishna astonished even Krishna. So therefore Krishna wanted to understand how is it that someone could experience so much love, and what is that love that these people are experiencing in relationship with me. So Krishna decided to descend as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one purpose of descending in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to experience that love as a devotee, and also Ragamarga Bhakti Loke Karite Pracharan. He really wanted to preach this message of Raga Bhakti, rather the kind of the flavor of that particular flavor of love that the Vrajavasis have towards Krishna. So therefore but there is a historical criticism of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur that we started discussing last time. Historically, it has been seen that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, many other Gaudiya Vaishnavas have criticized Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur of not sticking to the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute Raganuga Bhakti, but Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur hardly ever seems to speak about Raganuga Bhakti. The only thing that he says is Pujala Ragapata Gaurava Bange Matala Harijana Vishaya Range. He says that in essence he always keeps singing that. He inspires his Gaudiya Math devotees to sing this bhajan. He himself composed it. He says that the Raga Marg is fit to be worshipped by us, indicating that prematurely one cannot try to follow it. So the other Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they felt that what is this that he is preaching? Is he preaching the path of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or is he preaching something else? So in this way they felt, and they started severely criticizing Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And a similar kind of criticisms you can see even in Prabhupada being criticized for giving only the ABCDs. Whether did he really give the means to attain the highest realm of Vraja Bhakti? It's a big question mark, which many non-ISKCON devotees, some well-intentioned, some with a crooked intention probably, they criticize Prabhupada of. So is there any truth to it, and or is it completely false? That's what we are trying to understand. So as I discussed last time, this criticism of Prabhupada is also in parampara, because Prabhupada's own spiritual master Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur was criticized for the same purpose. So now if we can go over this history and try to understand whether this criticism is a valid criticism or not. If you are able to prove that no, this is a very invalid criticism, then for the same reason criticism of Srila Prabhupada also is invalid, because Prabhupada literally followed the teachings of Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur. That's exactly what we will try to understand right now. So now, what is this history of Manasiksha? So we are going to try to understand this history of Manasiksha through a book of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is called as Jaiva Dharma. So in this book called Jaiva Dharma, very interesting book. If you ever get a chance to read it, you should definitely read. The whole Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, starting from the basic philosophy of the relationship between the Jiva and Krishna, and the basic nature of soul, from basic tenets of spirituality till the highest realm of Madhurya Rasa, every single Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhantic points are covered in this book in the form of a novel, actually. So this, in one sense, like this Jaiva Dharma is considered to be one of the magnum opus works of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Very detailed, in-depth book, but all written in the form of a beautifully flowing novel. So various characters are introduced, and a very nice setup is set. The storyline is set, and somewhere down in the storyline, many philosophical concepts are discussed, and it is brought out in a very nice way. So now we are going to discuss from the 39th chapter, which is the penultimate chapter of this Jaiva Dharma. And the scene is set in Gambira. You all know Gambira. Gambira is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed. But, before getting into the chambers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's chamber in Gambira, as soon as you enter the main door, on your left is, if you remember, Shri Radha Kant Mandir, Radha Kant Mat, in which, apart from the deities of Radha Kant, there are also deities of Sri Gopal Guru Goswami and Sri Dhyan Chandra Goswami. So this is the setup, and the characters who are involved are, there is one Vrajanath and Vijay. So Vrajanath is the nephew and Vijay is his uncle. Both of them are from Mayapur. So, and both of them have taken initiation from one of the descendants of Raghunath Das Goswami, who stays in Mayapur. So, this Guru Maharaj of both of them sends them to Puri, to Srila Gopal Guru Goswami, to learn about Rasa, the Siddhanta of Rasa. So they have now come all the way from Mayapur, and they are here staying with Gopal Guru Goswami and his disciple Dhyan Chandra Goswami, and they are learning about the Rasa Siddhanta. So now Gopal Guru Goswami is going to give a history of this Raganuga Bhakti. Rather, it is Bhaktivinoda Thakur who is going to give that history through the mouth of Gopal Guru Goswami, because of course this is the setup is a fictional setup, but nevertheless the history is not distorted. The history is real history, but the characters of Vijay and Vrajanath are fictional characters, even though Gopal Guru Goswami and Dhyan Chandra Goswami are real characters, but the conversation between Gopal Guru Goswami and Vijay and Vrajanath is a fictional setup. But the history that Gopal Guru Goswami is going to narrate is a real history. Okay. So now through this discussion and the subsequent discussions, we are going to try to resolve this controversy regarding the accusation on Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Srila Gopal Guru Goswami, he says to Vijay that the Sri Manashiksha has laid down a systematic procedure for one to enter into and become absorbed in the pastimes of Sri Radha Krishna. One should follow it without guile. So I want you to note down this point. It is Gopal Guru Goswami who is glory. Someone has unmuted, I think. Kindly mute yourself if you're unmuted. I'm able to hear my own voice. Okay. So this is uh, okay. I think someone has to mute. Can you please check your uh, sorry, maybe I will have to mute. So okay. I'm sorry. I'll continue. Okay. So um, so this is the yeah. So Gopal Guru Goswami is sharing the story that he says that Manasiksha has laid down a systematic procedure for one to enter into and become absorbed in the pastimes of Shishi, Radha and Krishna. One should follow it without guile. So uh, this gives one the qualification to enter into the higher realms of bhakti, the Raganuga realm. And this is what I want you to note is this is mentioned by none other than Shri Gopal Guru Goswami. Just note down this point because we will come back to this very soon. So he says one should practice one's bhajan according to the bhava of ecstatic love expressed in the Shri Swaniyama Dashaka Stotram. This is also written by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. And he says Srila Rupa Goswami has exhaustively elaborated upon the details of Rasa Tattva. So here Gopal Guru Goswami is telling that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just like Vyasadeva divided the Vedas into 4 and assigned different disciples to actually disseminate that knowledge given in those 4 Vedas. Similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also he came to teach so many things about bhakti, about the Sambandha Gyan, about the Abhideya Gyan, and about the Rasa Tattva, and so many things. So he assigned different of his followers to disseminate that knowledge. So he empowered Srila Rupa Goswami to exhaustively elaborate upon the details of Rasa Tattva. So which he wrote in detail in a systematic way in his books, primarily Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and subsequently a sequel to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he also wrote Ujjvala Neelamani and other such books. He very in detail delineated the Rasa Tattva. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further inspired and empowered other disciples for various other things. So all followers received their particular missions on the order of Sri Chaitanya and were empowered by the Lord for successful fulfillment of that particular order. So like that, everyone got particular instructions from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at this point, Vijay asked, my dear Gurudev, I would like to know what responsibilities were given to whom. So on this context, Srila Gopal Guru Goswami starts, he mentions that actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Rasa Upasana. So Rasa Upasana means how one can practice bhakti on the level of rasa, which means an elevated practice of bhakti. So how does one practice that Rasa Upasana? So he taught this to Swarup Damodar Goswami. So Swarup Damodar Goswami further divided this path into 2. One is called the internal path and the other is called the external path. So it is called as Antapanta and Bahippanta, internal path and external path, or the esoteric path and the exoteric path. So three terminologies, internal, Antapanta and esoteric path. All three mean the same. And external, exoteric and Bahippanta. Bahi means external. So all these three terminologies mean the same. So he divided this Rasa Upasana into two, and he taught the internal path to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and he taught the external path to Vakreshwar Pandit. Okay, so the internal path which was taught to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami compiled it in many of his writings, the most prominent amongst those writings being this book Manasiksha. Actually, this book this is not a book, this is a part of a bigger book. This is just a small part, but written in the form of instructions to one's own mind. So this has just 12 verses, and the 12th verse is a Falashruti, and the 11 verses are in the form of instructions to the mind. So he says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught the internal path to Raghunath Das Goswami, who compiled it in his books like Manasiksha, and he taught the external path to Vakreshwar Pandit. And Vakreshwar Pandit taught this to his disciple Gopal Guru Goswami. And Gopal Guru Goswami taught this to his disciple Dhyan Chandra Goswami. And Dhyan Chandra Goswami wrote it in the form of a book which he named as Shri Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati. So Paddhati means a process, a systematic process. Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana, the form of a systematic procedure for worshipping and meditating on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna. So this Paddhati is given in this book. It is both simultaneously a deity worship manual, at the same time a meditation manual. And this is especially meant for those who are qualified for practicing Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Okay. So, I hope you remember the parampara. It starts with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who taught it to Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, and Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami divided it into two. He taught the internal path to Raghunath Das Goswami, who wrote it down in Manasiksha, and the external path was taught to Vakreshwar Pandit, who taught it to his disciple Gopal Guru Goswami, and Gopal Guru Goswami taught it to Dhyan Chandra Goswami, and Dhyan Chandra Goswami wrote it down in this book, Shri Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati. And here are these two devotees from Mayapur who have come all the way to Puri to learn about Rasa Upasana from the main lineage in the external path. You see, Gopal Guru Goswami and Dhyan Chandra Goswami are physically there in Puri, and they are the ones who are teaching the external path to Vijay and Vrajanath. And the same Gopal Guru Goswami is mentioning about Manasiksha written by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and he is telling the history. Actually, there are two paths. One was taught to Raghunath Das Goswami, the other half was only taught to my Guru Vakreshwar Pandit, and Vakreshwar Pandit has taught to me. I have taught it to my disciple, and he has written it in the form of a book. So now, this ends, the Jaiva Dharma section ends here. Now Urmila Mataji is continuing the description. So she says that from this description, it is quite clear, and also based on the further writings of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it is quite clear that he accepted both the internal path and external path as bona fide. So if you see, we will see subsequently that in his Manasiksha commentary, the Bhajana Darpan commentary, he writes many prayers, he presents many prayers which seem very similar to the prayers that are offered by Dhyan Chandra Goswami in his Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati. So one book of the internal path is Manasiksha, the other book of the external path is Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati. And Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati is filled with lot of elaborate prayers that one needs to offer. And similar prayers are offered by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his commentary to Manasiksha, which is the Paddhati for the internal path. Very interesting. So this very clearly shows that Bhaktivinoda Thakur accepted both. So therefore, the fact that none other than Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, sort of brought such prayers which are seen in the external path into a commentary on the prime book on the internal path indicates that he actually accepted both these paths. But we see in the, and even in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's writings, if you see, he mainly talks about Manasiksha, but some of the practices of the external path also he had accepted. So now, then where is the controversy? Why people are, if Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur accepted the internal path, then where is the controversy? The controversy is because gradually, over a period of time, the internal path was forgotten. Not that people did not know about Manasiksha, but they did not consider Manasiksha as a manual for practicing Raganuga Bhakti. They thought, oh, Raganuga Bhakti means external path. Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati. So if someone is not talking about the external path, then they are not talking about Raganuga Bhakti. Why such a situation came? When it was introduced, people were aware of both and they were practicing both, or they understood the role of both in the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. But over a period of time, when we start seeing the nature of Manasiksha, the initial shlokas especially, they emphasize so much on internal transformation. They talk about, oh, you want to worship Radha and Krishna, but what about your lust? What about your anger? What about your tendency to do prajalpa? So with these tendencies, do you think you are going to gain the qualification to worship Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan? So it's very painful because naturally one wants to practice, but now you are telling, in order to become qualified to worship, you are telling give up prajalpa, give up attraction to things which are not connected to Radha and Krishna, give up lust, give up anger, give up illusion, give up pride, give up greed, give up envy. And then he says, okay, even if you have given up all these 6 things, have you given up cheating propensity? How are you going to give up cheating propensity? Okay, even if you have given up cheating propensity, have you given up that desire for name, fame, adoration, glorification? So it is a very painful thing actually, because ultimately before becoming qualified to learn the higher practices which are mentioned in the external Paddhati, Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati, one has to encounter these internal enemies. And it is not easy. Of course, Manasiksha gives very wonderful solutions for all these things. Of course, it takes time to internalize, practice, and get the benefit from these things. It's a time-consuming process. So people, over a period of time, they understood that initially the internal path has to be followed at least till Anartha Nivritti. Then gradually one can think of following the external path. This was the initial understanding when it was introduced. But over a period of time, they saw that the internal journey is very difficult, but to practice the external things have become is easy. to the external deity worship procedures, the external chanting of some particular prayers in a particular order. These are easy to do, but the internal change of having to deal with lust, anger, envy, greed, the desire for name, fame, adoration, these things are very difficult to deal. So then came the next stage where people thought, oh, you could either follow the internal path or the external path. So they had become optional now, but it is not optional. The internal path is a prerequisite to practice the external path. But now that you have made it optional, which is a misconception, now it is easy to accept the external path because the external path does not explicitly talk about any internal change. So, like for example, as we saw, this is Archana Smarana Paddhati. This is more or less like a meditation and deity worship manual. So, if you see in an ISKCON deity worship manual, you will not see instructions about chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regulative principles and all those things, because if someone is qualified to read the deity worship manual, it is understood that he has already been initiated, he is already following the 4 regulative principles, and he is already probably even Brahmin initiated. So you may not necessarily see in a deity worship manual these kind of details, because it is assumed that if you are going to pick up this book, it is assumed that your preliminary qualifications are taken care. So similarly, when the book was compiled by Dhyan Chandra Goswami, he compiled it understanding that, oh, if someone is going to pick up this book, definitely he must have gone through the essential anartha nivritti stages, and he must have at least reached the stage of Nishta. So, so therefore, in this deity worship manual, there is no explicit mention of what is the state of heart. There is no mention about the purity that is a prerequisite to practice this path. Because it is not so explicitly mentioned, people thought, okay, I can either follow the internal path or the external path. So, because the internal path was absolutely impossible to imitate and the external path being very easy to imitate, slowly more and more people, because the natural human tendency is to take up the path of least resistance. So because the external path apparently seemed to suggest a path of least resistance, many people started taking up, and they started neglecting the internal path. Then a stage came, the third stage, which was the stage when Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur were there. At that stage, they forgot the internal path. At that stage, Raganuga Bhakti means external path. This was the status when Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur were there. So, then what happened? We are going to see now the history. We will continue discussing the history. This is going to be very pathetic history. What followed is very sorry state of matters that followed this improper understanding. So he says, those who focus entirely on the exoteric path or the external path without proper understanding of the esoteric path or the internal path as given in Manasiksha, then wrongly conclude that practical instruction in Raganuga Bhakti is virtually absent from the Gaudiya Math and ISKCON. Because according to them, Raganuga means external path. External path means Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati, Vakreshwar Pandit, Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyan Chandra Goswami. So now, when someone is not speaking about the Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati, then suddenly one thinks, is he talking about Raganuga Bhakti at all? Like that. Huh? First, we will examine the overall nature of each path along with their differences and similarities between the two paths. So, Some of it we have already discussed, but now we will go into a little more detail and try to understand the details of this external path and internal path. Okay, so then we will try to understand why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not favor the external path. Okay, so then we will try to understand that how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and following in his footsteps Srila Prabhupada perfectly followed the internal path, and they rejected the external path for a particular reason. We are going to see that. So now let's try to understand the external path. So the external path is a series of mantras in a particular order. So there is it's a DT worship manual, so it is quite elaborate manual actually. The book is lengthy and it would take quite some time each day to follow all the procedures, which is apart from the morning program of waking up, Mangalarti and Narsingarti, Tulsi Puja and morning chanting. And generally those qualified for this have to chant at least 64 rounds. And after all that, then they have to start practicing this DT worship procedures from Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati, which would easily take another 3 or 4 hours. So this is what you can see is easily a morning program. We are used to 4:30 to 8:30, 4 hours morning program. So you follow this path, it is easily a 10-hour morning program or more. So therefore, and this in this book you will see how a very systematic procedure of how you start by worshipping the Guru. Then after Guru you have to worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one would worship oneself as a pure sadhaka. Then one would worship oneself as in a Siddha Rupa of a young gopi. Then one would worship Krishna, then Radharani, then Radharani's 8 principal Sakhis, then his 8 principal servants of those Sakhis, the Manjaris, like that, And for worshipping each one of them, there is an elaborate prayer one has to offer, one has to meditate, and then gradually move forward. And apart from that, there are also meditations on the holy places in Navadvip where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes, like Yoga Peeth and the house of Srivas Thakur, the house of Chandrasekharacharya. Then there is, Chand Kazi's place, where various places where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes. One has to gradually meditate on each of these places while offering appropriate prayers. Then one moves to Vrindavan and mentally, he has to go through the various places and holy places in Vrindavan, offer appropriate prayers, meditate on the pastimes that Krishna performed there. Then he has to meditate on the Ashtakaliya Leela, the 8-fold pastimes performed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then one has to gradually meditate on the 8-fold pastimes performed by Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. So it's a very, very, very elaborate procedure. It's a huge book. And at the end of this whole thing, Dhyan Chandra Goswami gives the blessings that anyone who follows this path as written in this book will attain eternal service of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, which is the same Falashruti mentioned in Manasiksha also. So this is the external path. The internal path or Manasiksha is very small, as we saw, only 12 verses. And it mainly talks about, it also talks about worshipping Lalita, Vishaka, Radharani, Krishna, Govardhan, Radha Kund and all that, but only very briefly in one verse it is mentioned. But it talks about the internal change that is needed before one can start meditating on these things. Okay, I have started to get some questions. I will pause. I will pause at an appropriate time, and then we will definitely take questions. Okay, so because we are discussing history, I I'm not pausing more often than I would like to, because I think after we complete a good amount of history, we can definitely take comments and questions. So, so he talks about what is the internal change that is needed, how one can, you know, change one's internal desires, one's internal motivation. So it talks about these things in great detail, killing the inner demons inside. So it talks about both anartha nivritti and artha pravritti. So anartha nivritti is destroying the anarthas inside. Then starts artha pravritti. So actually of the 11 verses, 12th is Falashruti, of the 11 verses, the 7 verses, almost 7, or even the 8th verse you can say talks about anartha nivritti only. Then 8th verse onwards till the 11th verse, the last 3-4 verses, 3.5 verses talks about artha pravritti. Now that you have destroyed, you have managed to handle the anarthas in your heart, now let me teach you, O mind, how you can develop attraction for Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. That starts much later. Okay. So, and these are not really elaborated much. Uh, so then, uh, so this Manasiksha is very short and it does not describe a particular daily or regular routine of activities. It does not say that, you know, you have to get up and perform this early in the morning and all this, none of this sort. And after the 12th verse, it also gives a similar blessing that whoever follows this Manasiksha, following the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, and who tries to understand the deeper imports of these teachings, will definitely achieve service to Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. This is the Falashruti of Manasiksha also. Okay. So, so therefore, if you see um, uh, the qualifications to follow Manasiksha and Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati are the same. Like it is mentioned by the Acharyas, that the qualification to follow Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti is just Shraddha, just faith. Faith in the process of Krishna consciousness, faith in um, uh, uh, faith in the Acharyas, faith in the association of devotees, and faith in the books that come in the parampara. So these are the, so if one has this faith, oh, these are the people with whom I want to live my life with. These devotees are the people with whom I want to live my life. That is one aspect of faith. Oh, if I want to progress in bhakti, these books which they are studying, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, these are the books which can transform my life and take me closer to Krishna. Faith in the books. Then faith in parampara. And so whoever comes in this parampara, starting from, you know, Krishna, then Brahmaji, then Narada Muni, and so on, you know, they are bona fide and they have come here to rescue me from this material world and take me back home, back to Godhead. Faith in the parampara. That is the third aspect of faith. And the fourth aspect of faith is that if I want to progress in bhakti, that the means of attaining perfection in spiritual life is to practice Navada Bhakti. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. So when one has these four elements of faith, he may not even have started to follow the process. He may have, oh, one day I will practice this path. This path is so good. One day I want to practice this. One day I want to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That faith is sufficient. Then he is qualified for practicing Vaidhi Sadhana. But the qualification to practice Raganuga Sadhana is not just Shraddha. The qualification to practice Raganuga Sadhana is twofold. One is, at least Anartha Nivritti should be complete. He must have at least reached the stage of Nishtha. So while Shraddha is the prerequisite for practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, Nishtha is the prerequisite for practicing Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. But Nishtha itself is not sufficient. One should also have Laulyam. Tatra Laulyam api Mulyam ekalam janma koti sukritairna labhyate. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam yati kutopi labhyate. Tatra Laulyam api Mulyam ekalam janma koti sukritairna labhyate. It is mentioned that Laulyam, that greed, one should have developed that greed for that flavor of bhakti that the Vrajavasis have towards Krishna. One should have that greed also. And that greed develops. That greed is considered as bona fide greed only when it develops beyond the stage of anartha nivritti. So while one is struggling with anarthas, gross or subtle, any manifestation of that greed is not a complete indicator of one's qualification to practice Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So therefore, two things. One is one should have accomplished Anartha Nivritti and should have come at least to the stage of Nishtha or beyond. And second is one should have developed that greed. So then one becomes qualified to practice Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So, but the problem with these other people is that they don't know this. So they say that the qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is Shraddha. So whoever has basic Shraddha, even though he may be struggling with the anarthas, he can practice Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. This is a very dangerous philosophy actually. And this single misunderstanding has led to very serious issues in our parampara. And we will little later we will discuss that how such a misconception came about in our parampara and what it eventually led to. So we are going to discuss that little later. So both these have a basic requirement, but that those qualifications are not so explicitly mentioned in the external path, because when it was written, it was understood that only someone who has accomplished Anartha Nivritti would pick up this book. So therefore, it is not so explicitly mentioned there. So, therefore, but the inner path, Manasiksha gives very explicit qualification for. First, it starts with, in the first verse only, it says, Sada dambam hitva kururatim apurvam atitaram. Aye swantar bratas chatubir abhiyache dritapada. He says that Sada dambam hitva. If you want to practice this path, if you want to develop that kind of love that the Vrajavasis have for Krishna, you have to give up damba. Damba, when literally translated, is pride, but here the word damba refers to much more than pride. So damba here refers to the internal obstacles. And what this damba is described by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in verse number 4, 5, 6, 7. Starting from the grossest, he addresses subtler and subtler anarthas and how one can overcome these anarthas in one's spiritual life. He addresses that. So these qualifications are very explicitly given in Manasiksha, which talks about the internal path, but they are not so explicitly given in the external path. So certainly it very much indicates, based on how based on the practices and teachings of the bona fide acharyas in our parampara, starting from Srila Rupa Goswami onwards, or you can say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Swarup Damodar Goswami, then Rupa Goswami or Raghunath Das Goswami, and in their line, whoever have been accepted as bona fide acharyas, their teachings are very clear. The inner path is mandatory. The external path is optional. one can choose to practice it, or one can achieve perfection by practice of internal path also. This is the actual teaching. Okay. So, but having said that, both paths can be combined also. Like till Anartha Nivritti is completely accomplished and one reaches the stage of Nishta and Laulyam, one can practice the internal path. And once one has developed that greed, then what should one practice externally? That one can take from the external path. Okay. So therefore, the external path is dependent on the internal path for its success, but the internal path is not dependent on the external path for its success. Okay. So, for example, in the internal path, Shila in Manasiksha, Shila Raghunath Das Goswami says that one should offer prayers to Lalita Devi, one should offer prayers to Vishaka Devi, yesterday was Lalita Shashti. So, in Manasiksha, Shila Raghunath Das Goswami says one should pray to Lalita Devi in order to develop attachment to Radharani, whose appearance comes tomorrow. And one should offer prayers to uh, uh, Radharani to engage one in Krishna's service. Then one should offer prayers to Govardhan to give eternal residence in Vrindavan so that one can serve Radha and Krishna like that. You know, various different kinds of prayers are given, but they are very brief. And in Manasiksha, even those brief prayers are not said to be very mandatory, as indicated in the Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati. They are mentioned to be mandatory prayers, and they are quite elaborate prayers also, and they are supposed to be offered in a particular order. But such kind of mandatory instructions are not there in Manasiksha. And even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, commenting on this, he writes elaborate prayers, explaining various verses of Manasiksha. But he does not say that these are examples of prayers which could be offered by sincere practitioners, but he also does not say that they are mandatory prayers. So the problem is that the outer path, because it does not talk about any internal transformation so explicitly, and because it gives very simple imitatable deity worship techniques, so therefore anyone can feel that, oh, I can practice it and I can achieve perfection. So they are very easily imitatable. The external path is a very easily imitatable path. And this is what has led to basically unscrupulous people taking up to this path, unqualified people taking up to this path. And because the book explicitly, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically came to give, Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirnaha Kalau Samarpayitum Unnatojvala Rasam Subhakti Shriyam. So it is mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give Unnata Ujjvala Rasam. So Unnata Ujjvala Rasam means what? So there are many levels of understanding this verse. The first level of understanding is that Ujjvala means resplendent, sparkling. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give the sparklingly clear path of pure devotional service. So Ujjvala Rasa is the sparklingly clear path of pure devotional service, which is untainted by Jnana Karma. Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam Anukulyena Krishna Anushīlanam Bhakti Uttama. So that path which has been untainted by Karma Jnana Yoga, and that which has not been, that which is free from any other desire other than the desire to please Krishna, he came to give that path. That is one level of understanding Unnata Ujjvala Rasa, the superior resplendent path of pure devotional service, which is what Srila Rupa Goswami also talks about in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The little higher level of understanding of the word Unnata Ujjvala Rasam. So Ujjvala Rasa also refers to Madhurya Rasa. So even though in Vrindavan there are all rasas present, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically came to give Madhurya Rasa. Jaya Jayo Jwala Rasa Sarva Rasa Sar Parakiya Bhaveyaha Vrajete Prachar. So this comes in the Bhajan Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan. So Jaya Jaya Ujjwala Rasa Sarva Rasa Sar. So this Ujjwala Rasa or Madhurya Rasa is said to be the essence of all the rasas, and within that the Parakiya Rasa is said to be superior, like the Parakiya Bhaveyaha Vrajete Prachar. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to preach this Ujjwala Rasa. This is the second level of understanding. On the third level of understanding, what is this Unnata Ujjwala Rasa? So this Unnata Ujjwala Rasa is the kind of love that the Manjaris have towards Radha and Krishna. So the Manjaris love is very special, where the Manjaris, we will see this little later, the Manjaris, they don't, they engage in serving the Ashtasakis, headed by Lalita, Vishaka, then Tunga Vidya, Ranga Devi, Chitra, Champaklata, and so on. So the Rupa Manjari, Rati Manjari, Lavanga Manjari, they all serve the Ashtasakis. So therefore, they may not always get personal service to Radha and Krishna, but in serving the Sakis and aspiring for their mood of service towards Radha and Krishna, they experience that same bliss that Radharani experiences. So, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this is described in a very, very secret way. In the first 19 chapters only it is described. So, Rupa Goswami, while talking about Raganuga Bhakti, especially Raganuga Bhakti in the realm of Madhurya Rasa, he says there are two types. One is called as Sambhoga Ichchamayi, and the second type is called as Tattad Bhava Ichchatmika. So Sambhoga Ichchamayi means where a Raganuga practitioner is aspiring for the opportunity to engage in same kind of union with Krishna. Sambhoga Ichchamayi. He or she desires for a similar opportunity to engage in union with Krishna. And the second type is called as Tattad Bhava Ichchatmika. Tattad Bhava Ichchatmika means where the practitioner aspires for a particular mood of service that a particular gopi has towards Krishna. So they are not aspiring for that service. They are aspiring to develop that mood. Oh, will I develop that same mood that this gopi has in serving Radha and Krishna? Will I develop that service mood? So their aspiration is for the service attitude. And actually this is the mood of the Manjaris. And Srila Rupa Goswami says, this is the topmost form of Raganuga Bhakti, like that. So of course, the reason why we are discussing all this is that whether we may want it or not, we may like it or not, the writings of our acharyas seem to sort of emphasize and give a very strong special prerogative to the mood of the gopis. So which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specially came to give, and especially this. So therefore, if you see in this exoteric path, practically the kind of prayers and deity worship procedures that are given, before one practices that, one also gets one's own, one gets to know one's own Swarupa in the spiritual world, and they get the form of a Manjari. So, if it was any other rasa, either Sakya ras or Vatsalya ras, then it's okay. But in the material realm, this Madhurya is is prone to be misused. And traditionally this was the biggest problem, because the external path does not specifically insist on or explicitly insist on qualification. Therefore unqualified people struggling with gross anarthas, they take up to this path, and they have traditionally taken up to this path, and hence spoiling the name of this whole parampara. So therefore, what exists in today's day and age as the external path is only a very sorry state of sorry pathetic remains of what was originally taught by Swarup Damodar Goswami to Vakreshwar Pandit to Gopal Guru Goswami and Dhyan Chandra Goswami and so on. So what remains today is a very sorry state of affairs. So that is why during the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this external path was so much misused by non-bona fide gurus offering this path to unscrupulous disciples who were struggling with gross anarthas, and it led to lot of problems. And our sampradaya lost its credibility completely in Bengal, to the extent that Vaishnava means in Bengal they thought that they were just debauchees. So therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur understood that this external path is beyond redemption right now. It cannot be redeemed. So better neglect it and stick to the pristine path. Of course, both are pristine paths, but the external path had gone to such a state of disrepair. So he sort of rejected the external path and emphasized on the internal path given by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in his Manasiksha. So therefore, the external path, because it is very open and easy to misuse it, therefore, one could become an expert in these rituals and prayers without having any internal qualification. Therefore, it needs, this process is very dependent on the personal presence and guidance of a guru who is both highly perceptive and scrupulously honest. So he should be able to perceive the internal state of progress of his disciple. And when he sees lack of qualification, he should be honest enough to tell his disciple that now you stop doing this, you continue with your Vaidhi sadhana. But if the guru is not bona fide, if he has some vested interest in guiding his disciple, then the guru also sinks and the disciple also sinks with him. Okay, so that is why this is a very big problem. So also, as it involves lengthy procedures, the outer path is most suitable for persons who have retired from the world. So the external path is impossible to follow for a householder. So you cannot say a householder cannot practice Raganuga sadhana, because literally most of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were householders. What to speak of Raganuga sadhana? They were practicing Ragatmika Bhakti, the Bhakti of the Vrajavasis, while staying in the householder life only. But this kind of external practice is more suitable for those who have retired from family life. So this is not suitable for those who have accomplished anartha nivritti within the heart, but they are still within their householder life, which is very much possible, because to stay in householder life or give up one's life has nothing to do with accomplishment of anartha nivritti. These two are completely different subject matters. So, because the inner path cannot be imitated easily at all, and they cannot be ritualized also. So, therefore, those who are, therefore, people, so therefore, superficial people will never accept this path. So, and externally, if you see the devotees who have accomplished Anartha Nivritti and who are qualified to practice the Manasiksha style of Raganuga Bhakti, externally if you see them, they will exactly be like normal Vaidhi sadhakas. They will stand with you in Mangalarti, they will sing Gurvashtakam with you. They will sit with you for Narsingarti. They will offer water to Tulsi plant with you. They will chant the rounds with you. They will hear Bhagavatam class. They will speak Bhagavatam class, and they will stay with you. But you can never figure out whether they are practicing Vaidhi sadhana or Raganuga sadhana, because the Raganuga practice according to Manas Siksha is a completely internal practice. Externally, you cannot find out at all. So therefore, we may say, "Oh, Prabhuji, but um, in our line, everyone practices Vaidhi Bhakti only." The point is, how do we know? So, if everyone after is practicing only Vaidhi sadhana, which means we are reducing Raganuga sadhana only to certain external practices. But this is not the teaching of Rupa Goswami. This is not the teaching of Raghunath Das Goswami. This practice is an internal practice and one cannot externally find out. In all likelihood, many of the senior devotees who have sincerely practiced over decades are probably practicing it internally. To say that even after practicing so many years, they have not accomplished Anartha Nivritti and they have not developed that greed is to say that literally the path is a failure. So therefore, externally we cannot see. Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya brajalokanu. He says that seva sadhaka rupena. So this, he talks about practice of Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Of course, this comes within the first 19 chapters of NOD, which falls within the realm of Bhakti Shastri. So we are not discussing anything beyond that. So Raganuga Bhakti, for your information, constitutes the 16th and 17th, sorry, the 15th and 16th chapter of Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada has written about it. So whatever I am speaking is there from NOD only. Just that I am quoting that verse. That verse has been quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita also by Srila Prabhupada. So Seva Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrahi Tad Bhava Lipsuna Karya Prajalokanusarataha. So there very clearly Srila Rupa Goswami mentions, Srila Jiva Goswami clarifies, and Srila Prabhupada also mentions in NOD that a Raganuga Sadhaka externally practices everything just like the 6 Goswamis practice. This is called a Sadhaka Rupa practice, practicing using one's external body. And internally, whatever one may meditate on the pastimes in Vrindavan, they are all internal meditation, and externally they don't do it. Internally, they may be following some Brajvasi, but externally they follow the 6 Goswamis practices. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi Kala Vasani Kritau Nidrahara Viharakadi Vijito Chatyanta Dino Chayo. That is the practice of the Goswamis. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi. They chant, they count every single mantra that they chant. Whereas a bogus Raganuga Sadhaka, if Sahajiya will say, look, ultimately we are supposed to follow the Vrajavasis. The Vrajavasis do not, does Radharani accept a guru? Do the gopis follow Ekadashi Vrata? Like that they ask questions and they say that, oh, we won't follow. And have you ever seen the gopis having a bead bag? Even in your so-called ISKCON photos, have you ever shown Radharani or Lalita Devi or Vishaka Devi or the Manjaris traveling with bead bags? We are supposed to follow in their footsteps. Why should we chant with bead bags? We will chant always. So this is bogus Sahajiism. This actually none other than Jiva Goswami himself rejects in his commentary to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In talking about Raganuga Bhakti, he says, he talks about the Sauramya Sampradaya. So even when the 6 Goswamis were there, as soon as Rupa Goswami wrote his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, from that time on, the Sahajiya sects had started actually. Therefore, Jiva Goswami had to write that these people have this wrong understanding, so this is wrong. But you know what these people did? They rejected Jiva Goswami only. They said, oh, Jiva Goswami, he is not bona fide. Oh, why he is not bona fide? Because Rupa Goswami himself kicked him out of Vrindavan twice. You might know the story that once when the Digvijay Pandit came and took the signatures from Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, just to protect the uh, names of his uh, of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, he debated with him and defeated him. And Rupa Goswami, just to set the right example for others, because he had such a wonderful relationship with Jiva Goswami, he asked him to go out of Vrindavan. And the next time was when Vallabhacharya visited Srila Rupa Goswami. He offered to edit the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He found some mistake, which was not a mistake. And Jiva Goswami, in a very respectful way, he clarified to Vallabhacharya that, oh, this is the mood in which Srila Rupa Goswami wrote, and this is the meaning. And when Rupa Goswami came to know this, he again sent him out of Vrindavan. But just to set the right example for others that what should be the etiquette in dealing with senior Vaishnavas. Actually, the etiquette was not breached. But just like a mother teaches her daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter, in the same way, Srila Rupa Goswami taught everyone through teaching Srila Jiva Goswami. So it was not otherwise. And these people, because the um, because the explanations by Jiva Goswami were undigestible to these unscrupulous people, they actually ended up rejecting Jiva Goswami only. So their parampara starts and ends with Rupa Goswami only. They accept Rupa Goswami only, and they don't accept anyone beyond that. So this is the problem. So therefore, so such people who accept only the outer path, when they saw that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was not accepting the external path, they thought that, oh, he is rejecting Raganuga Bhakti. But he was not rejecting Raganuga Bhakti. He was rejecting the premature practice of the external path of Raganuga Bhakti. But he was practicing Manasiksha, the path described in Manasiksha, which we will see very soon. So we will see how historically the external path was misused. But before we go into that discussion, so I will pause because we have discussed for quite some time. I will pause here for a few minutes to see if there are any quick comments, questions. If you have, you can please ask. Already through the chat box, I have received a couple of questions, and I will. So one is from Shri Gaur Karuna Prabhu. He has written, can the practice of external path lead to Sahajiism if not practiced under proper guidance? Yes, it does lead to that. And we did discuss it somewhere, just we discussed it later. So yeah, any further questions? I have, you can unmute yourself and ask. I have Aranya Vihari Prabhu, you can ask Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Pranam. Thank you.
Yes.
Prabhuji, you told that Manasiksha is a part of the bigger book, or these 12 verses are a part of the bigger book or the bigger compilation.
Yeah.
So what is that bigger compilation?
I forgot the name of the book. I will let you know in the next discussion. I'll let you know.
Okay. And my next question is, Prabhuji, further to the previous question which just now was asked by one devotee. So regarding Sahajiism, so when in ISKCON also we see a lot of, you can say, restriction or reservation talking about such esoteric topic or maybe high level of topics. Because like, for example, I discussed with few devotees that we are having a very good quality Manashiksha discussion by His Grace Balram Shakti Prabhu. You want to join or not? So the first notion, which oh, that is a very high level topic. That's a very esoteric topic. I'm not qualified for that. I mean, either my counselor or the way I'm being guided, I should not attend this, that. So, how to actually understand this thing that yes, when the qualification is there to actually touch these kind of topics.
So as we discussed in the initial discussion only, uh, uh, of course we are in discussing the history, we are of course having to discuss about Raganuga Sadhana, and of course even Raganuga Sadhana is very much within um, the realm of the Bhakti Shastri syllabus only. It is not beyond the Bhakti Shastri syllabus, and it's, in fact, we are trying to understand what is the qualification. But it is very natural for one to have such a reservation because of what our parampara had to go through due to unscrupulous people following uh, the higher paths without proper qualification. So the fear and the discomfort is very, very natural. We cannot blame them for that. Uh, but at the same time, ultimately, uh, you know, uh, an educated um, understanding is the only solution. So ultimately, okay, if you don't know what it is, you try to know, and if it sounds esoteric, like I remember, um, mm, in one of the forums in which senior devotees were there. So um, I said that, okay, uh, through, of course, Radha Gopinath Prabhu, I shared that we could discuss Madhurya Kadambini. And they said, oh, Madhurya Kadambini. Oh, oh, that is, we are here to discuss, basic sadhana bhakti. Madhurya and all very high topics. Of course, Madhurya Kadambini means it has nothing to do with Madhurya Rasa. It just indicates it's actually a very, very basic book which talks about basic what is Shraddha, what is
Symptoms,
Sadhu
yeah.
Sangha, what is Anartha Nivritti, these basic things. But just the name Madhurya, because of the history of our Sampradaya, it has such a powerful it generates such powerful negative emotions that it is natural. So then once you could explain to them, no, 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 we are not talking about that Madhurya, we are talking this is the contents of the book, and then they got interested. So the fear is natural. So if you try to help them understand what the contents is, it is very similar, as we discussed, very similar in nature to nectar of instruction. And in fact, nectar of instruction also talks about Radha Kund, Radharani, the gopis, and all that in the last few verses. Similarly, in the last one or two verses, when discussing about the Brajavasi's love, Manasiksha also talks about, but the initial verses all talk about Anartha Nivritti only. So that way, um, one has to communicate and clearly explain, oh, these are the contents. If you are interested, you can attend, like that.
Okay, Prabhuji. Can I ask just last question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you told the prerequisite about Raga Bhakti, Raga Vedi Raganuga Bhakti, which is Nishtha.
Yeah.
So similarly, when we approach the books, the granthas of Shad Goswamis, so is there any kind of a prerequisite that yes, we should go through this and then touch this? Like for example, to touch books like Manashiksha or maybe other high-level books, is it a prerequisite to go through first Chaitanya Charitamrita and Nectar of Devotion and then touch these books, or we can still, I mean, have a systematic study the way you are teaching, and then parallelly or maybe later at a later stage we can touch Nectar of Devotion?
See, that is why I clearly indicated that at least Bhakti Shastri is a prerequisite, because basic, one should have an experience of reading, of having gone through the basic Prabhupada's books, so that we see everything from the founder Acharya's point of view. So if you have not understood the founder Acharya's point of view, then to skip and go to read the teachings of the past acharyas is one thing, is a breach of etiquette, and second thing, we will not be able to understand uh, uh, those teachings in the right perspective also. So therefore I insisted that if someone has completed Bhakti Shastri, or at least for those who are quite senior uh, and who never got an opportunity to systematically do and write the exams of Bhakti Shastri, but still who have a fairly good understanding, who have studied Prabhupada's books fairly well, they can attend. That's why I insisted on that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Any other quick comments, questions before we move forward? You can unmute yourself and you can ask.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, in one of the slides and in what you spoke also, you mentioned that in this internal path, one needs the close guidance of a guru who is scrutinizingly honest and who can scrutinizingly see the inner character of
in the external path. In the external path.
Oh, in the external path. Okay, okay. I was thinking it was the internal. I was mistaken there.
Yeah, external path. Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, so we still have another 35-40 minutes, so we will continue this discussion further. Okay, so now if you see historically, as we already discussed it, actually the external path was misused, and this is what led to serious problems in our parampara. So from the above analysis, it is readily apparent why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did not teach the outer path to his followers, but in many places and in many ways he gave instructions that parallel the inner path. So he followed the inner path and he rejected the external path because it was in such a state of disrepair that it was very difficult. So we will see briefly in what ways the external path was misused. Okay, so the first misuse is an exclusive or nearly exclusive emphasis on attainment of the mood of Radha's Manjari Gopis, which is true, which is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. And these external practitioners, because unqualified people took up to this path, there is still residual envy, competitive spirit, superiority complex, wanting to be superior and all that. So therefore, they used to be extremely critical of even the mood of the 8 principal gopis, and what to speak of the other rasas like Vatsalya rasa and Sakya rasa and Dasya rasa. Oh, they are very inferior. They were, to speak in such a way is extremely offensive, and definitely someone who is really qualified would never speak like that. So instead of a guru aiding a practitioner to unfold and nurture an individual's own spontaneously awakened mood, a pseudo guru prescribes the same generic Manjari Gopi mood to everyone. So this was the problem. So such people, because such unscrupulous people took up to this, they were offending none other than the eternal companions only. So this was the first misuse, which led to serious offenses. You are offending the eternal associates of the Supreme Lord. The second misuse is defining Raganuga Sadhana exclusively as a solitary bhajan with specific prayers and meditation in a specific order. So this kind of a recommendation was not even given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they defined Raganuga sadhana as solitary bhajan. Go to a solitary place and chant. So according to them, even a preacher or a teacher of Krishna consciousness is not qualified to be a Raganuga sadhaka. Why? Because Raganuga sadhaka means solitary bhajan. That was their understanding. So then what to speak of a householder who has a profession, who is, so such people, they are not at all qualified for Raganuga sadhana. But they are literally defying history. Historically, most of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were householders. There are even many persons in the line of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur who misunderstand Raganuga sadhana bhakti according to those two ways in which the external path has been misinterpreted and applied. So which means the first thing is, anything other than the Manjari Gopi, they are inferior. They are not fit enough. And second is, Raganuga sadhana means solitary bhajan. When you are a neophyte, you can go out and preach. But when you progress more and more, you do solitary bhajan. This was the understanding. That is why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was so heavy. So he was, then he wrote elaborate, songs like Dushta Mana Tumi Kishera Vaishnava, Tava Harinama Kevala Kaitava, like that. So Pratishtara Tare Nirjanera Gare, Tava Harinama Kevala Kaitava. So he was writing songs like that just for the purpose of name, fame, glorification. You are going to a solitary place and doing your bhajan. Your bhajan is just cheating, like that. So these two ways, but the third way is a serious problem. The third area where the external path has been misapplied is in how a person starts the Raganuga path and the relationship among the path itself, the guru and the practitioner. What is the relationship with the guru and the disciple on the path of Raganuga Bhakti? And how does one start the path of Raganuga Bhakti? What is the understanding? So, of course, we understand that both in the external path and the internal path, a guru is required. So, instructions from and meditation on sadhus, whether physically present on the earth or departed, is also required in both these paths. However, neither in Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Paddhati, the book for the external path, or in Manas Siksha, which is the book for the internal path, do we find clear or explicit instructions about the role, specifically one's guru might or must play in the development of an individual's raga marga, beyond giving of the holy name and the mantras. What is the role of the guru? Okay, the first verse says, Gurau Goshte Goshtalayishu Sujane Bhusuragane Swamantre Shri Namni Vrajanavayuvat Bandvasharane. That is the only verse in which the guru is mentioned, actually. The first verse, where it seems to indicate that the guru's role is give the Harinam and the Gayatri Mantra. So beyond that, is there a role of the guru? Neither does the external path explicitly mention, nor does the Manas Siksha, the internal path, that does not seem to explicitly indicate that. But we do find general statements, for example, in Shri Mukta Charitram of Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami has written, Nama Shreshtam Manumapi Shachiputram Atra Swarupam Shri Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi. So this is a very famous verse, often quoted by many acharyas, glorifying the guru. So what is the role of a guru? So this is the same Raghunath Das Goswami who has written in another book called Shri Mukta Charitram. he writes, Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Shri Guru. Yasya Pratita Kripaya, by whose costless mercy, Prapto, I have attained. What? Nama Sreshtam. I have attained the supreme holy name. Okay. And the divine mantra. Nama Sreshtam Manumapi. Shachiputram, and I have attained the service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the son of Shachi Mata. Atra Swarupam, and I have also attained the association of Swarup Damodar Goswami, because Raghunath Das Goswami is writing. Shri Rupam, I have attained the association of Shri Rupa Goswami. Tasya Agrajam, his elder brother Sanatan Goswami's association I have received. Urupurim Maturim, and I have attained the supreme abode of Mathura. Goshtavatim, and I have also attained the blissful abode of Vrindavan. Radha Kundam, the Radha Kund. Girivaram, the Govardhan Hill. Radhika Madhavasham, and the desire in my heart for the loving service of Shri Shri Radha and Madhav in Vrindavan. How did I get this opportunity? He says, Prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi. It is only by the costless mercy of my Guru that I have achieved all these things. The holy name, the Gayatri Mantra, the service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the association of Swarup Damodar Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, the abode of Mathura, the abode of Vrindavan, Radha Kund, Govardhan, and the desire to serve Radha and Krishna. All these things who has given? My Guru only has given. So this is the writing of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. But of course, the followers of the external path, they also misinterpret this verse. They say, oh, Prapto means to receive the Siddha Pranali mantra, to receive one's eternal form of a gopi in Vrindavan. Like that they think. Okay. So, therefore, unfortunately, deviant persons and groups, some perhaps well-intentioned, turned Siddha Pranali into a farce by giving unqualified persons a generic list of the aspects of their so-called spiritual identity. So, it is mentioned that there are 11 items here, one's name, one's form, one's particular services in Vrindavan, the dress that one wears, and all these things are there. So all these things are there, but it is only for those, as we discussed before, only for those for whom Anartha Nivritti is accomplished and who have developed that intense greed for the kind of affection that the Vrajavasis have for Krishna. But if one has not developed such qualifications, it should not be unscrupulously given to anyone and everyone. The meditation on a pseudo-spiritual identity not only has no value, but also impedes the awakening of one's real identity. So, therefore, the problem is, if the frog in the well thinks that it is Pacific Ocean, then it will never try to venture out of the well and try to see if there are any bigger water bodies outside of the well. So, therefore, if someone assumes that, oh, this is my spiritual form, if an unscrupulous guru, if a non-bona fide guru gives these 11 things to a struggling sadhaka who is struggling with gross anarthas, who is not even close to accomplishing anartha nivritti, then such a person will only imagine a wrong form, and imagining such a wrong form will be the biggest pitfall in that person actually achieving the actual his form in the spiritual world. The parody of Siddha Pranali has had its ill effects for the Gaudiya Vaishnava community in general. Equating Raganuga sadhana with Siddha Pranali and rejecting the latter leads misinformed persons to reject the former also. Okay, so therefore, the biggest misunderstanding is to think that if I have to practice Raganuga sadhana, then I should get a Siddha Pranali mantra from my guru. But this is not true, and this is not needed at all. So additionally, such equating prevents Vaishnavas from recognizing a non-Siddha Pranali path as bona fide. So if one thinks Raganuga Bhakti means Siddha Pranali mantra, then someone who practices Raganuga sadhana who tries to practice Raganuga sadhana through the teachings of Manasiksha, there is no need for Siddha Pranali mantra. So you would say, oh, they have rejected Raganuga sadhana only, like that. So therefore, someone who thinks that Raganuga sadhana means that which is practiced by the Sahajiyas, it is a wrong understanding. So therefore, such people may be reluctant to accept the path of Raganuga Bhakti, even though they may be qualified for it, because they are misinformed about the path. So this is very unfortunate, because if someone has been sincerely practicing the path of Vaidhi sadhana, then and if he accomplishes anartha nivritti, if his heart has been cleansed, and by hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, he has developed that greed for the flavor of love that the Vrajavasis have towards Krishna, but still, because of misunderstanding about the path of Raganuga Bhakti, he may be very much reluctant to accept the path, to accept the right path, as described by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita also. That is very unfortunate, actually. So it is like throwing the baby out with the bath water. So that's very unfortunate. Of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did reject the external path, but he did not reject the Raganuga Bhakti itself. So now we will try to understand how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually followed the internal path. We still have 15 minutes. So at least 10-12 minutes we'll try to discuss this theme. We won't be able to complete it today. But then we'll continue this next Tuesday. So in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, Gaudiya Vaishnavas in general identified Raganuga sadhana primarily with the above three perversions of the external path. So the three kinds of perverted understanding, all three coming from the external path. This is how Raganuga Bhakti was understood. Bhaktisiddhanta therefore taught the inner path of Raghunath Das Goswami, which what we are going to discuss, Manasiksha. He denounced the false practices that imitated the external path, resulting in much confusion as to whether he taught Raganuga sadhana at all. The vehemence with which he rejected the perverted remains of the external path made most Gaudiya Vaishnavas to doubt, oh, is he actually teaching Raganuga sadhana at all? Is he outwardly rejecting? Is he outright rejecting the path that has been chalked by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Like that, people started doubting. Okay, most certainly he did so. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, you should not mistakenly consider anartha nivritti as prayojan, for one thus surmising can never into artha pravritti. So he is talking about, he is addressing his own disciples, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He is telling that, look, anartha nivritti is not our goal. It is one of the stages. It is not our prayojan. The purpose of our life, the goal of our life is not to cleanse our heart. If at all that is a goal, it's an intermediate goal. But the goal of life is to develop love for Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. That is our goal. So he says, don't think that anartha nivritti is our prayojan. Our real prayojan is artha pravritti. But artha pravritti cannot happen without anartha nivritti. That was the emphasis of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, of course. Therefore, I will begin speaking about the Ashtakaliya Leela. Who says? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says. He was most reluctant to speak about these things. But he says, now I will speak the Ashtakaliya Leela. He says, let those who have chanted Harinam for 15 or 20 years hear such topics. Of course, this statement was made probably about at least 8 to 9 decades before. Must have been, yeah, close to 80 to 100 years before this statement was made. In today's day and age, with all the weapons of mass distraction, our 15 to 20 years of chanting Harinam, there is a good chance that we may not be qualified. So it is not that he is not giving a numerical qualification for hearing these higher pastimes. He is telling 15 to 20 years who have sincerely practiced the path of Vaidhi Sadhana, let them come and hear. But in those days, in today's day and age with so much distraction, one should not take this statement too literally and say, oh, what to speak of chanting for 15-20 years. I was initiated 25 years back, so I should be qualified. One should not think like that. Do not think that the Ashtakaliya Leela is the property of the Prakrita Sahajiyas. It is actually our affair. He says, we are the ones who should be discussing the Ashtakaliya Leela. He says, it has to be retrieved from the hands of those cheaters. So this was the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But he did not want anyone to prematurely discuss these topics. So this is from the Gaudiya, which was the official magazine, just like our Back to Godhead. Gaudiya, Sajjana Toshani, these were the journals of the Gaudiya Math. Let us briefly examine some of the strongest evidence that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was teaching the inner path of Raganuga Bhakti. How do we know? Is there any proof that he was following the inner path as taught by Raghunath Das Goswami in his Manasiksha? He says, let's try to study the Gaudiya Math logo. Okay, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself designed this logo for Gaudiya Math, and this logo was actually used in all of the official magazines of the Gaudiya Math. Okay, now if you see, this is the logo. If you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is on the top, and Guru Gaudiya, this is at the bottom, and this is the vertical line. So if you see, there is a right hand side to this vertical line and there is a left hand side. On the left hand side, if you see, there is Pancharatra Vidhi, and there is Vidhi, means Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and that photo you see is the photo of Lakshmi and Narayan. And there is also Archana. You see bell and Agarbatti, that is the Archana Vidhi. So Pancharatra, which talks about the Archana Marga, and the word Archana and Vidhi, and the photo of Lakshmi Narayan. This is on one side. On the other side, you see Bhagavatam. And then, okay, someone has to mute yourself. Can you please mute yourself? So, I'm sorry, I'll just share the screen again. So, if you see, on the right hand side, you see Bhagavatam, and you see the word Raga, indicating the Raga Marga, and you see the photo of Radha and Krishna, and below you see Kirtan, So in Kirtan, you see Mridanga and you see the printing press. What looks like a, Xerox machine in that particular photo, it's actually a printing press. Okay. So which means, Sankirtan and also distributing the literatures was a part of Raganuga Bhakti only. So to say, and in the center you see the word Om, and you see the holy name, and then the 6 opulences of the Supreme Lord are given in the form of a, in the form of a star, like that. So if you analyze this logo of Gaudiya Math, you can see that both the Vaidhi Sadhana is given in the left hand side and the Raganuga Sadhana is given in the right hand side. So you see Lord Chaitanya is at the top and the words Guru and Gaudiya are at the bottom. So Guru and Gaudiya indicates the Sangha, the association of devotees. Okay, and in the middle is the holy name, which is the center of both Vaidhi Sadhana and Raganuga Sadhana, chanting of the holy names. Then on the left hand side you see the word Vaidhi or Vidhi, devotional, which is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And then you see and the Vidhi half contains the word Pancharatra, rules of deity worship, and you also see Archana Vidhi, Archana, and you also see the photo of Lakshmi and Narayan. And the other half contains Bhagavatam, the stories and philosophy of Krishna, his devotees and his incarnations. Then there is the photo of Radha and Krishna, followed by a Mridanga drum and the printing press. Okay, like that. So from the logo, it is clear that Bhakti Siddhanta's process of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is based on the holy name and on Shastras such as Srimad Bhagavatam, with the aim of pleasing Radha and Krishna and obtaining their shelter. This was the purpose of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, to please Radha and Krishna through the holy name and through following the scriptures like Bhagavatam. So A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, he used the same Gaudiya Math logo on the gate of ISKCON property in Mayapur, West Bengal. So we will read some excerpts about what Prabhupada wrote about that logo and what Prabhupada spoke about that logo, to indicate that how Prabhupada perfectly imbibed the teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Prabhupada writes, this is from the purport of 4th canto 24th chapter, the Rudra Geet chapter, 45 and 46th verse purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, neophyte devotees worship the Lord according to the Pancharatrika Vidhi, or the regulative principles enjoined in the Narada Pancharatra. Radha Krishna cannot be approached by the neophyte devotees. Therefore, temple worship according to regulative principles is offered to Lakshmi Narayan. It's not offered to Lakshmi Narayan, it is offered to Radha and Krishna only in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, in the mood of worshipping Lakshmi and Narayan. Although there may be a Radha Krishna Vigraha or form, the worship of the neophyte devotees is acceptable as Lakshmi Narayan worship, which means one should not become overly familiar with the deities prematurely, without the necessary purification of heart. Worshipping according to the Pancharatriki Vidhi is called Vidhi Marga, and worship according to the Bhagavat Vidhi principles is called Raga Marga. You see the same thing that was mentioned in the logo. The principles of Raga Marga are especially meant for devotees who are elevated to the Vrindavan platform. The inhabitants of Vrindavan are actually on the Raga Marga or Bhagavat Marga platform. They participate in 5 basic rasas: Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya and Shanta. So Prabhupada is indicating Raganuga Bhakti here. So Prabhupada clearly mentions that when one elevates oneself to the platform of Vrindavan platform, or where it means to the Raganuga practice, where one develops an appreciation for the kind of love that the Vrajavasis have towards Krishna, or rather a greed for that love, then one can practice through the Bhagavat Marg, he says. And in another lecture in Gorakhpur, Srila Prabhupada writes, my Guru Maharaj introduced, you have seen the, what is called that signia, one side Pancharatriki Vidhi, one side Bhagavat Vidhi. That is, I have seen that Gaudiya Math emblem. Yes. And so actually, Bhagavat Marg is very strong. That is sufficient. But without Pancharatrika Vidhi, this polluted body, polluted mind of the devotee cannot be purified. So which means Prabhupada says, first one has to practice Pancharatrika Vidhi, purify oneself, and then follow Bhagavat Vidhi, which means Pancharatrika Vidhi means Vaidhi Sadhana, Bhagavat Vidhi means Raganuga Sadhana. That's what Prabhupada is indicating. From Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's logo, we find both his emphasis on Raganuga and the means to follow that Raganuga. Okay. So, let us examine his own personal practices and what he taught his disciples. Okay. So, from that also we can understand that he actually followed the inner path of as taught by Raghunath Das Goswami. Of course, we will continue this discussion further. We don't have sufficient time to cover this part today. So I will pause here, and we still have another 5-6 minutes. So if you have any quick comments, questions before we wrap up for the day, we will take.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Madhav Chandra Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for you for taking the time and then giving us this opportunity to learn about the history of our, the movement and history of our path. Especially, tomorrow being Shri Radhashtami, we are very, very grateful, indebted to you to help us to study this systematically. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. I am just sharing what we are just reading together the article which has been painstakingly written by Srimati Urmila Mataji. So our gratitude is to Mataji for painstakingly researching on this line. We are just reading the article together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
This is just apart from the class. What other books of Raghunath Das Goswami is more famous, like Manasiksha? Like Manasiksha was the only book he wrote, or there are other books?
He has written other books. I think Vilapa Kusumanjali is one book.
Okay.
Then he has also written, I think, Dankeli Kaumudi, like that. Few books he has written.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, so thank you very much for your patient listening. So hoping to have your association next week also, and wish you all a very happy Radhashtami tomorrow. So we all can pray that to Radharani that we can rectify our practices, purify ourselves, and one day become qualified to practice in a way that pleases Krishna and Radharani in Vrindavan, our Guru Maharaj, and also as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also to all his associates. So tomorrow is a very auspicious day, and we are discussing a very auspicious book, so which gives us something something very wonderful that we could pray for tomorrow to Radharani, so that she can bless us in our endeavors to follow the path that has been chalked out by our acharyas. So thank you very much. Hoping to have your association next week also. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami Pad ki jai, Shri Manasiksha ki jai. Hare Krishna.